Hi there, I'm Milo Sipka, and this is the Apatros Review. Now in this episode, we take a look at this COVID-21 lethal virus, also known as Contamination Virus-21, which is the Australian alternate title, and also known as lethal virus. This is directed by Daniel Hernandez Torrado, and it was released in 2021, actually on New Year's Day, and it's a Spanish direct-to-video horror film, basically a pandemic horror film. Now the director of this is also the producer and music supervisor and editor, Daniel Hernandez Torrado. He also wrote the script along with Nuria Bermudez and Carlos Cici and Diego de la Concepcion, who also did the story and production design. Now this DVD, this is the Australian DVD from Vendetta Films, and I'll talk about the DVD later on, but that's how it is. And the cast of this are Christian Stam, Loretta Hope, Ramon Alvarez, and Thomas Paredes. Now, the coronavirus lockdown of 2020 and 2021 forced a major rejig of many facts of life for us poor humans, forced to live the rest of our lives with what was initially considered to be a naturally mutating virus that was considered to be highly infectious and lethal, only to turn out to be a synthetically modified bioweapon released by the Chinese Communist Party. But the only good news for us is that the coronavirus is not as deadly as we first thought, unless you're either in your 70s or older or have compromised immunity. This virus is just like a severe case of influenza at worst, or in most cases no symptoms at all. Although that is not to count the nasty auxiliary effects that everyone who gets the virus will get, although that is now inevitable. Now, since the first days of the lockdowns of the pandemic, filmmakers of the independent arena of genre cinema decided to use the pandemic as a canvas for their horror stories. The first coronavirus-related horror film was Corona Zombies, an ultra-cheap, full-moon title where Charles Band decided to take the notoriously bad Bruno Mattei Italian zombie film Hell of the Living Dead, which I actually have, I'll review it in the future, which itself was actually called Virus originally, ironically enough, and pared it down to about an hour long, adding in 10 minutes of new footage and releasing it direct to video. Not many critics liked it, but at least it's notable for being the first coronavirus horror film, and Bad Movie Masochist will love it. Think of it as a Reader's Digest condensed version of Hell of the Living Dead. Now, as for COVID-21 lethal virus, man, where do I even begin with this one? For starters, the title is a major misnomer here. This film seems to be emulating the classic Italian zombie films in the 1980s, by having at least 3 different titles floating around in international release. It was originally made under the title Lethal Virus, which was then changed to COVID-21 Lethal Virus for international release, while here in Australia, it was issued on DVD under that title, Contamination Virus-21. And the film here in Australia is rated MA15+, which means that it's restricted to, actually the restrictions apply. I mean, if you're 15 or over, you can watch this, but if you're under 15, you need a parent or adult guardian with you. And the film has strong horror themes, violence, and coarse language. Now, as I said, in reality, while I don't know when this film was made exactly, my bet that it was that the film was shot before the pandemic started, like right before, and the producers simply shot extra footage of the protagonist walking around desert streets, empty shopping malls, as well as spliced in news reports talking about the pandemic, as well as several audio clips of reports spouting climate theory, blaming this viral outbreak to, yep, you guessed it, climate change. Ugh. Now, history is going to look back on the first 3 decades of the 21st century in a somewhat negative light, as this loony climate theory that the socialist left have been using as their ideological vehicle for global socialism, among an agenda, and just about every aspect of socialist ideology has been linked to one purpose, and I'll let you guess what that is. Now, this climate theory crap has deeply infected a vast swathe of humanity. I'm not going to get into the climate debate on this occasion, but the fact that the full rise of this movie decided to base the zombie plague on a prehistoric form of rabies that turns its victims into zombies, let loose by melting permafrost in the Arctic, just doesn't gel. The common title of COVID-21 Lethal Virus was, in my opinion, a massive marketing blunder by the filmmakers. Really hurts the film. There's no COVID in this film, it's just basically prehistoric rabies. Although that is not the worst of it. This film, while not exactly a terrible film, I mean it looks competently made, aside from the shitty directorial flourishes which I'll explain later, happens to be one of the most boring zombie films I've ever seen. In the past 2 days that I tried to watch this fucker from start to end, and both times I just haven't been able to focus on the film. I had to resort to watching YouTube videos to keep my attention active, since the film is practically the zombie film equivalent of The English Patient, which by the way was a mid-1990s romantic drama. that attained a reputation for being one of the most boring films ever made. Even Uli Lommel could make a more exciting film than this. The majority of the film consists of two people, a female scientist on her way to a lab to work on a zombie rabies antidote, and an ex-soldier who has developed a terminal case of pessimism disease, not having any positive thoughts about the outside world, becoming a loner. The pair meet up in the Spanish forest after zombies decimated the scientist's convoy and decide to head to a nearby town. The scientist tells the loner that she has an important lab specimen to retrieve. Here's where the film really blows off both its feet with a shotgun. Halfway through the film, the viewer seems to be down the scientist's story, but right before the end they arrive at the small town, along with two surviving members of the scientist's original protection detail, only for the loner to realize that 1. The scientist wanted to rescue her daughter, not a lab specimen, and 2. That the scientist is a lesbian. Her now zombie wife is trying to attack her daughter, who has safely hidden herself in the bedroom. After getting the young girl out of there, the loner sacrifices himself to allow the mother and daughter to escape the zombies, and the last remaining soldier finds a working car and the trio leave the town. That's it, that's the ending. Of all the various ways the four writers here could have worked on to twist this somewhat minimalist storyline, they chose a highly implausible one that ruined the story in the first place. That, the boring molasses pace, the nondescript acting by the cast, the pathetic reliance on photorealistic but non-functional weapons the soldiers use, which is something that actually was a plague on the indie movie making scene over the past decade, the bad decision to frame the film in full scope, in other words 235:1, which the film cannot use properly, again another symptom of the 2010s, and the shaky cam use all conspired to make this an utter nothing of a post-millennial zombie film. Not to mention that the zombie genre has pretty much by this point run its course when it comes to the original template pioneered by George A. Romero. Watching this thing is going to take a lot of patience. Although I'm one of the most patient people on this planet, I actually waited 2 weeks for a high school science teacher to give me something I needed for a homework assignment. But the problem is that with this film, there's nothing here to keep your attention on the screen. You can practically leave this movie playing on the TV in the background while you're doing housework, and it won't bother you in the slightest. Or even at a house party with mates, without worrying about anything explicit showing through. There's no sexual content or nudity in this film. Given that half of the pandemic-era horror films so far have been utter bunk, this film doesn't do anything to change their reputation. But it's not worth watching to anybody except professional bad movie masochists up for an endurance challenge. So a D, 2 out of 10 applies here. Not an atrocious film exactly, but one that fails to make any impact on the horror genre at all. It's just pretty much forgettable. That's it. Watch it once and pretty much you're not going to remember much about it. Now for gore nudity. There's no sexual content seen here, no nudity. Although there was actually a very brief shot of a male zombie in a hospital gown, walking around with his ass cheek peeking through the back in the opening credits. The gore is surprisingly on the minimalist side, with only a handful of blood effects shown. Now for the DVD. This comes onto Australian DVD by Vendetta Films, a minor label that handles all of the Asylum's post-2017 releases and international genre films. The DVD here has absolutely no supplement at all, not even trailers. As for print quality, it's pretty much in the middle of the technical quality scale, since the dull color palette and shown digicam look robs us of any chance of performing as a home entertainment system demo title, despite the good resolution. There's only one soundtrack on this in English 5.1, which has been recorded at a low volume, making it necessary to boost the volume on your TV to hear it properly while there are no subtitles offered. The DVD is in region 4, so you'll need a multi-regional DVD player if you want to play this outside Australia and New Zealand. So that's pretty much it. The film. So that's it for COVID-21 Lethal Virus, aka Lethal Virus, aka Contamination Virus 21. Pretty much give it a D, 2 out of 10. It's bad. Not terrible, but just bad. Okay. I was going to do this video a couple of days previously, but I've been pretty sick with a cough for the past few days, a week or so I haven't been able to do it then. Anyway, I'll try and get one done tomorrow to compensate for that. Okay, hope you guys are staying safe, take it easy, and enjoy yourselves. See ya.